and you don't really care too much, people will come. People will talk to you. And in fact, those people are going to be more interested in talking to you if you have no agenda. The best thing is that, and sort of like what I heard a couple weeks ago, is like, and this is very true, and very much so even in entrepreneurship, is when you ask for money, you get advice. And when you ask for advice, you get money. So ask for advice. You know, don't ask for a job. Ask to learn, because you're young enough to get away with that. Last tip is, where is it? Oh yes, generating serendipity. What I mean by that is that's my version of creating your own luck. And I kind of touched on that at the beginning, which is, you know, when you want to do something, when you want to get something your way, you have to find an environment that's the most conducive to helping you do that in the first place. I moved down to the valley for that reason. There aren't a lot of people in Vancouver that can understand what a mobile in-game advertising network might be. Nor will they understand the potential of it, nor will they understand how big it can be with the right sort of fostering an environment and sort of nurturing. However, in the valley, I knew that that would be possible. And you know, that's why I stayed here in the first place, and that's why I'm building my company here. And there's also the fact that, you know, let's say, you know, it's the same reason why, you know, bankers move to New York, right? Or aspiring bankers. I have no idea why you want to be an aspiring banker, but if you do, move to New York or Toronto, whatever. Toronto's New York's little baby brother. If you want to go to a more smaller version of it, just to like test yourself, see if you can stand it. By the way, even if you survive in Toronto, there's no way that you'll know you can survive in New York. New York is a completely different environment. It's a complete gong show. And the reason why, you know, actors or aspiring actresses go to LA, or why aspiring porn stars go to Miami. Same thing, right? So you know, people go to these areas, and I know I'm mentioning a lot of American cities. Fine, I'll give Canada some credit. There's a lot of opportunity in Vancouver and Calgary right now. I'm sure you would have seen a lot of opportunity propping up in terms of job creation and resources and business being done in both areas. Definitely leverage the fact that you're in a country that's stable, that has a lot of natural resources, that has a sort of a strong banking background, doesn't require a lot of volatility to work on. But at the same time, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to understand your life depends on risk, right? Risk is what your job is all about. For me, that's what being an entrepreneur is, managing risk and managing conflict. And when you're in an environment that's more conducive to risk and rewarding risk, high risk, high return, low risk, low return, right? Then you come to an environment that can help be conducive to that. And so that's why I'm here in the first place. So generating serendipity, guys, like find your environment. Do not wait for things to come to you, right? That's what Mike did. And I don't want to give away his story, but you know, he reached out. He's like, you know what, fuck it. I want to work with Hootsuite. I'm just going to ask them. Oh, what's that ask? You know, okay, if you want to work at Rogers, go ask them. Email the CEO. It's not hard to email the CEO. It's typing a bunch of letters into your keyboard and pressing send. A lot of us have mental barriers, right? It's always, oh, well, will they reject me, or will they not care? Well, who cares if he doesn't care? Is this the worst thing that can happen? He says no. We'll find the next CEO. You know, it's not that hard, right? So a lot of the things that you're trying to do, especially things that you think you might not have the chance to be able to do because you don't have enough experience, or you know, you don't have enough people who are around you who can help you. Find people that can help you. Create your own board of directors, right? There's a conference that I believe is coming up on the 18th, which I was supposed to be speaking at, but unfortunately I can't make it up there now because of some traveling conflicts. It's Me Inc. You are a company yourself. You should build a board of directors around you that can support you. And people don't ask you to be board of directors of you. You ask them, right? And then they'll offer your time. That's pretty much about it. So I am now done. I know that you might have some questions. I cannot see you right now because they turn off the camera, but if you have some questions, feel free to throw it out, and I'll tell you if I can't hear you, and I'll try my best to answer.
Brian, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I've got a few questions from Twitter here.
Let's start with the live question.
But okay, and we recommend anyone with a laptop to tweet in as well. And if you want to ask a question, you don't have a laptop.
How can I track it on Twitter so I can read it myself?
Oh, that's great.
Sure, it's #ebizubc.
Got it. Done. Okay, question.
You can look for Peter Chung Jr. He's had a few.
Yeah.
Has a few questions.
Which one do you want me to address? I'm not going to address that one that's talking about legality of intoxication.
Well, just wait till you go and see. That's to answer the first part of the question then.
Okay, I went to Singapore. I went to NUS.
And your thoughts on the social bubble? Is it a real thing or people making it up?
I don't know what you mean by the social bubble. Please elaborate.
That's right. We'll elaborate.
All right, here it is. So, I think a lot of us in this room understand what it means. Okay. I guess a lot of us in this room realize what it means to be a bubble. So, in the financial market, when stock prices go up and just ridiculous. Okay, let's elaborate.
I can answer actually. Like I can elaborate for you.
Sure, yeah, just go ahead.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
What the question is about is basically like dot-com bubble and other bubble that happened. Will the social media thing turn out to be kind of the same?
Okay, so you know why the bubble happened in the first place? And you guys study this shit to know to who, whatever end, is that bubbles exist because companies don't actually create the value that they're valued at. It's that simple. So if there is a bubble, then there is a bubble. I can't stop it. I think there might be. Like my answer to that question is there might be one. There might be a few small bubbles, depending on the types of areas that are emerging out of the innovation that we're seeing in the platforms today. I think social is most likely one as well. The reason why I think so is not because I'm just saying it for the sake of saying it, because Facebook is the root of all of these apps and services. And when so much wealth is trying to be built on something that arguably isn't as solid as people think it is, social is very fleeting. Social is always changing. Just because you have one friends graph doesn't mean that it's always going to stay the same. So that fact of the matter means that when people are trying to build tools on social, they are leveraging a layer that may be outdated. They may be leveraging data that isn't actually important at that given time. So as a result, when you're seeing so many companies that are valued at like hundreds of millions of dollars or even billions, like Zynga, on one platform, you have a problem. Zynga, however, is a little different because they're in gaming. Gaming itself is another product in and of itself, only if the technology can sustain that type of revenue generation. But when you're relying on one platform to be able to create user generation, it's kind of a risk. And as a CEO, again, it's like risk management. Your whole company is dependent on one dude at Facebook going, oh my God, you know what if we change the link to move from here to here, and you're fucked, you know? And it's like that's like the worst thing that could happen. And that's the reason why the bubble is totally going to be an issue, especially to companies that know they're not creating the value that they're valued at. And I won't name any names, but you guys can almost think of them.
Okay, so if anyone has a question and they would like to raise your hand and speak it out loud, we will also accept the question. So I guess we're continuing with
I can ask a question if I can. Brian, how was South by Southwest?
Yeah.
If you don't want me to comment more on illegal inebriation, then I won't answer that question. No, it was fun. It was a great conference. South by Southwest, it's not really a conference, it's more like an expo. It's a massive congregation of nerds. It's like spring break for nerds. And we were there for the weekend. And the community is so small, if you think about it, when you go to that conference, that you could walk down the street in Austin and you'll see someone who's like your next door neighbor in San Francisco. And then they'll most likely also be drunk as well. So you'll have a chance to either A, pry a lot of sensitive details from them because they may not be sober enough to protect themselves, or B, actually just have a casual conversation with them, which is also good too. Whatever.
Okay, so actually, unfortunately, due to the limited time, we can only take one more question, and we'll take it from the Twitter. And maybe Brian, would you like to choose a question that we do?
Do I have any more live questions?
Oh, okay.
Does anybody want to know how he got where he got?
I just tweeted one.
You did one? Might as well just say it too, you know, the stuff isn't that bad.
Okay, so I'll read the question for you. So do you think there is a big enough gaming market in Vancouver to foster a lot of small gaming startups?
100% yes, because of EA, right? I mean, EA has done a lot for Vancouver that Vancouver doesn't even realize, which is down in the valley, a lot of gaming companies recognize Vancouver as being a hub as well. There's a company in Vancouver called A Thinking Ape, which I'm sure some of you might have heard of. They are a rapidly growing startup that's also connected to the Silicon Valley space, but also has a great product and a great set of users that is run by a great team. Eric Steve is one of the founders, a good friend. He is just one of the types of people that you want to work with because you know that he's there not to screw people or try to create fluffy value. He's there to actually create real value. And so I think a lot of startups are starting to emerge because of the fact that Vancouver has actually really good tax credits for R&D. It's called SHRED tax credits. And a lot of gaming companies realize that if they actually hire local Canadian staff, they can benefit out of that and actually just leverage off of an amazing lifestyle and living environment, which is Vancouver. Again, not to say that San Francisco doesn't have a great work environment, but at the same time, you know, when you have Vancouver, you have Whistler so close by. Who doesn't want to live there and work there? So that's one big thing, and I think Vancouver is going to continue to grow that way. The only problem with Vancouver is that it suffers from, I think I'm a big city syndrome, but I'm actually a really small city syndrome. Vancouver is not a big city, face it. We don't have highways in the city. That's just one example of why Vancouver is not a big city. There's not a single freeway that goes through the city. Just think about that. That's one big thing. And so when you think about it, you're like, oh my gosh, like Vancouver's tiny. Yeah, it's a town. But what Vancouver is good for, though, is it's a solid environment to generate creativity. Because San Francisco is the same thing. You don't have to worry about weather down here. Vancouver may be so, but you just have to bring an umbrella every day, which is kind of normal. But here, it's like you know that there's not going to be small things like, oh, it's going to be really cold or it's going to be really, really hot. It's usually very temperate, so you don't have to worry about those things. You have to worry about creating cool things.